was doing halfway well listening to that again until that dad came at the end. And that's what I lived for 10 years. Every half an hour was to hear that dad yell, to go take care of her, give her pain medication, give her whatever she needed. And last May, I lost that dad yell after 10 years. And that's the most courageous girl I've ever seen in my life. And any story I've ever heard of anyone, I've never seen anyone as strong as that girl was. And her attitude, what she thought about it. And it's really tough for me to be speaking tonight. I was actually the first speaker that ever spoke at this panel years ago, and pretty much spoke every year since. And I was always the first speaker, because I have a nurse at the house while I came here to talk. And I turned around and get home as fast as I could to make sure that I was with her. And tonight, I guess I had the opportunity to be able to sit in the back and listen to the other speakers and hear some other stories. And it's just all really different for me. I'm going to start this off with something that I was going to end this with this, and I thought today I'm going to start off like this. And if I can make it through this, maybe I can speak a little longer. If I don't make it through this, I'm sorry, I'm doing everything I can to talk right now. But at the funeral home, in the box of cards, I received this in an envelope. It was from my brother. My brother is a person that I look at as a very dry person. He's a CPA. He's just a dry person, doesn't really show emotion. I've never really seen him show emotion in his entire life. And I got home and opened it up. And here's what he wrote. And actually he wanted to read this at the funeral. But his wife and my sister and my mother would not let him do it. I would have let him, just to tell you, because it came from his heart, which I never knew he had. I did, but I never realized it because he never showed it. He's the person who would come a couple times a year, not really to visit, but when he's in town, like he had to stop, and all he'd do is peek into Danny Joe's bedroom and say, hi, and leave, and come out with me and talk with me, but he just couldn't be in there. So here's what he wrote me. Many of us have seen the movie Brian's Song, the story of Chicago Bear running back Brian Piccolo. There's a line at the beginning of that movie which is equally fitting here, and it goes like this. Every true story ends in death. And this is a true story. The Thiel story is one everyone knows by now. It is the poster child for the devastation that drunk driving can cause. My brother Dan has lost his wife at the moment of this impact and has fought ever since against extreme odds to piece the rest of his family back together. Dan has forged a father-daughter relationship over the past 10 years with Danny Joe, both physically and emotionally, that none of us could ever totally appreciate. He has been at her side 24/7 to provide her with the best life possible under the circumstances. Her suffering is finally over, and she is in a better place now and reunited with her mom. As for my brother, may he enjoy a well-deserved break for a few days, and the same care over time that he has so unselfishly provided others. This is the part no one liked. And one final thought. The scumbag who caused this accident, which has now claimed 2 lives and has wrecked numerous others, will be out of jail soon, having served his 10-year term. He will be back driving on the roads with all of us. Make sure you wave to him as he passes you by, preferably with the middle finger salute. So, I heard that 5 times today, trying to get it out. And this is the first time I actually really got it out. And that letter means a lot to me, or that note, or whatever you want to call it. And now I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. And I guess he started entitled, so I will. Here's my story, sad but true. 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, on August 2nd, 2001, on a family vacation trip, which we had taken every year to the Brickyard 400 in Indianapolis. We always left on Wednesday night. Idiotically, to me now, would leave at 2 in the morning. The reason we'd leave at 2 in the morning was to make it around Chicago traffic before the traffic was bad. Never thought about a drunk driver on the road, you know. But anyways, that year, for the first year ever, I could not leave with them. And I was going to meet them there the next day because I had a business appointment the next morning, so I couldn't go. So the van was all packed and they were all ready to go, and at 1:30 the commotion started and everyone's up and ready to go, and I'm still trying to sleep for my meeting, and I kissed my wife goodbye, and I'll never forget it. She told me, "We'll see you tomorrow morning, Bert, we'll see you tomorrow, and you better be there." Those were her last words to me. Well, they left, I went back to sleep, and a little over 2 hours later, my phone rang. And it was a friend of mine. And his wife was pregnant at the time. She didn't sleep well at night. And he's one of these people who has a police scanner and is out all the time. And he called me up and he said, "Dan, you have to call the hospital." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Dan, just call the hospital." I said, "Bob, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Dan, there was a bad accident and you have to call the hospital." And I said, are you sure?" He said, "Just call the hospital." Well, you know, he goes off the deep edge once in a while in conversation, so I tried my wife's cell phone, and there was no answer. And he had told me in the phone conversation that the accident happened by Horicon. And he's telling me this 2 hours after they had left, and it's like, it can't be them. You know, they're in Chicago now. And I called her cell phone, there wasn't an answer, so I called him back. I said, "Bob, what's going on?" He said, "Dan, just call the hospital." And he says, "Your family was in an accident." He said, "I know it was them. I know it was them." And I asked him right out, I said, "Bob, was there a fatality?" He said, and he just busted up. He said, "Just call the hospital." So I called Beaver Dam Hospital and I told them who I was, and I got transferred from one person to another person to another person to all of a sudden officer, whoever, coming on and telling me I had to get there right away. When I pulled into the parking lot, they were waiting for me outside and escorted me right into this room off the emergency room and proceeded to tell me that the fatality was my wife. And that all 3 of my kids were in critical condition. And things didn't look good for my daughter at all. And then they took me in from room to room to room to see the kids. I remember seeing my son. At the time I thought he was the worst. And he had been in the front passenger seat, and the impact had tore the floor open of the van where he was sitting, and his legs went through the van and it took the top of his foot off and shattered his shoulders, and he smashed his head in through the dash, and he was just a bloody mess. And I remember him wiping the blood out of his eyes, and that's when I could tell it was him. So that was number one. Then we go to my oldest daughter, who was pregnant at the time, and she had shattered her collarbone and shoulder, and it's as if when my wife left this world, she wanted to protect her grandchild that was coming, because for some reason Nikki's seatbelt broke on that impact, and she went into the floor area as opposed to that seatbelt taking care of the baby. And that baby was born nice and healthy, my first grandchild. And then we went in by Danny Jill. And truthfully, she seemed the best of any of them. She was talking to me, and she told me, she says, "Dad, I can't feel my legs, I can't feel anything." And at the time, I said, "That's okay, they're giving you all the medicine and they'll take care of things. It's nothing they can't fix." And she took all her jewelry off, her earrings out and her rings off, and giving them all to me. And off they lowered the ambulances up, and I waited for my family to come and get back to the house and get the medicine. That became the 10-year trip from hell. And Annie Jo went through hell, and I was right beside her the whole time going through hell with her. And now I start my next stage of hell, I guess, because she's gone. And it's all because of a drunk driver. And she said a lot of this, and she talked about a dream that she has every night, okay? That she had every night until the day she died, which is one hell of a way to go through a life for 10 years. She was 14 years old when this accident happened. She never had a life. Never had a life. After that accident, all of her friends were gone. It was me and her. No one would come around to see her. They couldn't handle the situation. And there's adults that can't handle that situation, many adults. And anyway, she had that dream every night. Well, I wasn't in that accident with them to have that same dream. But at 10:37 on May 22nd, I've had a dream every night ever since. As I sat next to her side on the bed and held her, and her last gasp of air come out of her, and knew it was over, and leaned down and kissed her, and closed her eyes and crossed her hands. That's something that I'll never forget my entire life. I forgot a funeral that took place for my wife because I had so many things going on, and all the kids were in the hospital, and it was just overwhelming. But now I've got that memory in my mind that she's had. And I'll tell you what, I wish I would have that. Because now I'm living that hell that she lived for 10 years. And I'm doing everything I can to get out of that, okay? To not be like that. But I can't. And luckily, I'm saying this to you people, luckily, you're on that side of the fence. All right? Because I'm sure a lot of you have kids and spouses and everything else. Well, put yourself in my situation. Okay? Let's reverse this role and put yourself in my situation. How are you going to act towards me who's sitting up there right now? You can't put yourself in my situation. And you shouldn't have to. So don't put anyone else in that situation. And don't kill yourself because of the situation also. And I'd like to speak some more, but I think that's about all I can do right now.